This is Two Strangers Meet, where you get to be a part of the conversation. I'm your host, Jazzy Hermione, where we talk all things life, change and challenges, where every story matters. Your voice, your experience, let's meet.
This is terrifying. I'm really doing this, so it is recording. It doesn't sum up what this video is all about today. But hi, welcome to episode 1 of the Two Strangers Meet podcast. And it's basically an overall of what Two Strangers Meet is. Who am I, your host, Jazzy Hermione, and what I want this podcast to be about. This is the first time I'm ever recording a podcast, and I'm a little bit terrified right now. But I guess that's the whole theme of this episode, is taking risks. So basically, I've always had this thing inside of me that I have things to share. I really want to help people and inspire people, and just, I feel like there's a reason I've gone through the things I've gone through, and it's up to me, and it's a responsibility of me to then share that with the world. I am a true believer that everyone has a story, and everyone's story is impactful and powerful and should be heard by others. It's up to us to share our experience and our life in hopes of inspiring or helping someone else, because you truly don't know what's going to happen when you say something out loud. You truly don't understand the impact of your voice and your story. So it's up to us. And I wanted to create a platform where people could share their stories, which could hopefully impact others. Which came to the idea of strangers meeting together, because I think every single person you meet, every single story you hear, you gain something from it, even if you realize it or not, that our whole lives are shaped by the people who surround us and the stories we've been told, the lessons we've learned, because most of the times we all learn through doing something, through our life experience. It's the biggest teacher. So I wanted to create a platform where everyone could come together and could share. So as you'll hear at the end of this video, this episode, this podcast isn't just about me speaking to you, speaking about my experience. It's also opening up the floor to you guys. And everyone listening has the opportunity to be heard, to have their story told on this podcast. So what I've done is, on my website, on the Two Strangers Meet website, you can record yourself answering a question. Now, every single week, I'm going to change the question based on the theme of the episode. And you have the opportunity to go in there and record an audio message about you answering that question. Now, these questions are going to be different every single week, like I said. This week's is about risk-taking and the biggest risk you've taken in life. Two Strangers Meet was made to be able to bring strangers together and to share their stories. And whilst in these episodes I'm going to share all about me, I'm also going to link it back to your responses. So at the start of every episode, you'll be able to hear from around 10 people all their different responses to different questions that I put up each week, which will then shape what I talk about. But what I wanted to talk about was this whole setting of goals and risk-taking. And I'm one who sets herself huge goals. I've always been like a big dreamer. I've always set unbelievable expectations on myself and just forced myself to achieve it. And people have told me, like, you're crazy, like, you're not going to achieve that. Firstly, if anyone says you're not going to achieve something, cut them out of your life, because that is not the negativity you want in your life. Because, like I said, we're made up from our experiences of other people. And if someone's telling you you can't do something, we don't want that. Get that out of here. But basically, I've always been a high achiever, and I've set so many goals for myself. And then I found at the end of last year so much self-doubt and like questioning of myself, and I call myself doing it a lot. And I was like, where is this from? I have never in my life questioned myself as much as I was questioning myself. And I realized it actually came from many things. I didn't have a successful year in 2025. Now, I say unsuccessful. I think it was quite successful in the sense that I did so much traveling. I learned about myself. Me and my boyfriend moved in together. But I didn't achieve the things I said I was going to achieve. I may have achieved a lot of things that I didn't realize and had so many more life experiences, but I didn't achieve the things I had on my vision board. And for me, I felt like for the first time in my life, I hadn't achieved the things I said I would. It was kind of that kick being like, you know, you can't actually achieve everything you want. despite you being a high achiever your whole life and always being at the top. Sorry, I'm not trying to be cocky about it, but like I was a smart kid at school. Being a smart kid at school, being the top of your class every single year, all through high school, I never really failed at something. So for me, going through a year where I felt like I was a failure really, really kicked my confidence in that sense. So when I was trying to come up with goals for 2026, I just kept doubting myself. Anytime I set a goal, I would be like, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to achieve that. And I was like, where is this coming from? So obviously, did the digging, realised it was because of that. And so I then had to tackle that. And like obviously I had to do that in my own time, a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. I was very grateful I took off 2 weeks over that Christmas New Year's break, which was just time to reset myself because I was so burnt out. So I think it was also a mix of being burnt out. But I finally came to the realization of like, as soon as I realized why I was feeling that way, I could get through it. And I started with setting small goals. And then as my confidence grew, I could increase those goals in some sort of way. But I also want to talk about a second thing on a side note of that, is that your confidence in yourself truly just comes from you believing and building evidence that you will do the things you say you will. So when I was self-doubting and thinking I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, I realized because it was in the little everyday moments day by day, I wasn't doing the things I would say I would. So then I had to cut everything back and look at my daily routines, daily habits and go, okay, what do I actually want to achieve every single day? And I'm talking simple things like drinking 2 liters of water, reading a book, going to the gym. It was when I let those habits slip that I knew made me feel better, that I told myself I was going to do. When I let them slip, my confidence slipped. And it wasn't because my body was changing or how I looked in the mirror going to the gym. It was because I was simply building evidence that I can do the things I say I will. So if you're having a self-doubt moment, make sure that you're doing the little things that you say you will, not skipping out on that workout, because you're then building evidence that you won't do what you say you will. So long story short, my goals for 2026, I realized that when I was goal setting, a lot of my goals weren't like actual tangible things. Yeah, I could have this image on the vision board, but that wasn't actually what the goal was. The goal was never, let's use like PT in the gym as an example. One of my goals was to have a PT. And I realized having a PT isn't actually the goal. The goal was to feel confident in the decisions I'm making in my fitness journey and feel like I'm making progress. For me, I just saw that as a PT. But it was when I broke it down and figured out the intent behind every single goal, I realized like that intent was so much more powerful than the goal itself. And I turned those intents into the goal. So my goal isn't to get a PT this year. My goal is to feel confident in my decisions around my fitness journey and feel as I'm progressing and have a plan that I can stick to and confident it's going to work. Me, I'm currently doing that without a PT. But I know if I need help, that could be a step I use to help achieve that goal. But having a PT itself isn't a goal. And I want to touch on about the biggest risks. When you set yourself a risk or a goal per se of something you want to achieve, let's take this podcast for example. It is currently, as of recording, the 12th of February 2026. I set on January 1st that I wanted to have a podcast this year. I wanted to record episodes every single week. It has taken me a month and a half to sit down and record. Not because I just was procrastinating it. It's because I was so overwhelmed in the feeling of the unknown that I was paralyzed. I was scared, I was overwhelmed, so I simply didn't do it. That, at the end of the day, what happened? I had so much anxiety around making a podcast episode because I was like, oh, it has to be perfect. I have to do this, I have to do that. I was scared to just sit down and gap. And it's this course of like perfectionism versus messy action. And sometimes you've just got to sit down and do it. Like I was thinking so long term about my marketing strategy and how I'm going to record it and I should go in the studio. I was like, no, get a camera, sit down and start yapping, which is what I'm doing right now. It is as simple as that. And when we come up with a goal, we overcomplicate it too much to the point where we're paralyzed with overwhelming feeling that we don't actually do anything. So break it down into simple steps and realize that the first time you do something isn't going to be perfect. It isn't going to be amazing, but you're just doing one simple step to get at least started. Because honestly, they say it all the time and I truly didn't believe it, and now I actually do. Starting is the hardest thing ever. As soon as you start, as soon as you take that one step, it gets easier and easier and easier. Well, that's what I'm hoping with this podcast anyway. And if you have a goal, this is something I realized that I was unintentionally doing, and now I'm like, oh my God, I need to do this every single time I have a goal. If you have a goal, when you start thinking about that goal, you're so motivated to do it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to record 10 podcast episodes. It's going to be about this, about that. I'm going to get a guest interview. I'm going to ask her to come on. You have all of these ideas. A week later, you're terrified. Like logic comes in to play. You're like, I can't do this, self-doubt. What you're going to do, as soon as you have that goal and that motivation, set something in stone that forces you to do it even when your motivation dies. Let's figure out what the definition of a risk is. A risk represents the potential for negative consequences, combining uncertainty with the likelihood of harm, loss, or danger. So this week, it's all about, like I said, the biggest risks you've taken in life. So let's have a listen to them now.
It's not financial advice, and I was not advised to do this, but I spent my bill that was due for the BAS on new stock for Pretty Chill.
Birth without any pain relief 5 months ago. Amazing, but also do not recommend.
Putting my heart, soul and savings into my business. Shows passion takes you all the way.
Probably spending our life savings on starting this business.
Starting my brand Monday Fruit. Moving overseas from Canada to Australia all by myself to finish my master's degree.
We're going skiing in Whistler when I've never touched a pair of skis before in my life.
Moving from New Zealand to Australia, only knowing one person.
Leaving a toxic workplace.
The biggest risk I've ever taken was actually at a festival. One of the main artists, so that's Summer Walker, to anyone that knows her. She was performing with Bryson Tiller actually at this particular festival. And she had a medical problem, and now I'm studying still, so I'm not graduated, but they asked if there was a doctor on the site. I said yes. I was kind of pushed into it, and next minute I'm backstage with her entire team, watching the entire festival for the rest of the night. Ended up going to dinner with Bryson Tiller afterwards, so it definitely paid off for me.
Probably taking over my entire lease, quitting my secure full-time job and starting my dream clothing brand.
I don't think I've really taken a big enough risk in my life yet. I think I've done some things other people may find risky, but I don't know, everything's felt very comfortable, and I think that's the problem. I think I'm at a point in my life where I really need to take a big risk and just see what happens.
I think a lot of people would say when they took that risk, they were terrified. They didn't know what was going to happen. And I truly believe that with some level of risk, as much as you can look up the pros and the cons and think about it logically, at one point you're just going to have to say fuck it and do it. Stop thinking about it, stop talking about it, and just start doing it. Like I was saying with the paralyzing feeling, you just got to start. Take that first step and everything will work itself out. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to take the first step. You have time to perfect it later. You just need to start. That sometimes ignorance is the bliss in this situation. If you have a goal you want to do, sometimes you just got to stop thinking about it. You got to stop thinking about the possibilities, the probabilities, the consequences, and just give it a go. I was talking to Chelsea Miller, and she organised an in-person event for a bunch of e-com owners to present a stall. And she also did a Pilates event. She got sponsors on board. But she said in that moment when she decided to do it, she had no idea what to expect. And 2 weeks later, when her event was being put in place and she was standing at the event, she said, if I knew what I would have to go through 2 weeks ago, the challenges, the hurdles, the complications, she probably would not have done the event. But now that she did it only because she didn't know these things would come up. And she got through it. She made it work. Now she knows she can go put on another event. Even though she knows what to expect, she knows also that she can get through it and overcome it. So sometimes if you're sitting there with a goal and you're thinking of every single challenge that will pop up, every single reason it won't work, sometimes you just got to blank that out and go for it. Yes, be realistic with this. If you're going to quit your job, please have some savings. If you just keep focusing on the negative things, and all the issues are going to come up, you're going to be paralyzed in fear. You're not going to actually do it, and you're going to talk yourself out of it. So sometimes be ignorant about it and just go for it. ignorance is bliss sometimes. And instead of sitting here right now and going, okay, how am I going to edit this podcast? How am I going to upload it? How am I going to get people to watch? Let's just ignore that. That is tomorrow's problem. Today's problem or opportunity is to sit down, record, and speak your truth. That's what I've got to do. I've got to be sitting here right now, and instead of thinking of all of these things that I've got to go do later on, let's just sit in the moment, focus on the one step that I'm up to right now, and we'll figure everything out later. I need to be present in step 1 before I think about step 10, because I'm not going to get to step 10 without getting to step 1. And if I'm too overwhelmed by step 10, I'm not going to do step 1. So break it down into steps and focus on the step you're currently on. I think that's going to wrap up episode 1. I'm not really sure what we talked about in all of this, or if I just yapped and nothing made sense. But it's episode 1. Stay with me. So please, if you could please stick around for episode 2, I would greatly appreciate it. It will be in your ears next week. So set yourself a notification on Spotify. Subscribe, pretty please. And then if you want the opportunity to leave your story, leave your message, head to www.twostrangersmeet.com. I'll put it in the description below, as well as next week's question, so you can be a part of this podcast journey.